Well, welcome to the 700 Club. Let's go over to the CBN Newsroom for today's top stories.
President Trump predicts a home run Monday when he announces his Supreme Court nominee. But liberals are spreading fears abortion could be outlawed by one of his candidates. And it's unclear if the president will choose a less controversial candidate as a result. Ben Kennedy reports now from Washington.
After wrapping up interviews, President Trump only has the weekend to lock down a final decision.
I'm just so excited from my perspective because, boy, you have so many great picks.
It now appears the list of 7 initial contenders to replace retiring Justice Anthony Kennedy is down to 2 or 3. A source close to the process telling CBN News that it seems Brett Kavanaugh is the top choice, with Amy Coney Barrett in second. But things could change. Do you feel this could be signed, sealed, and delivered by September?
Absolutely.
Carrie Severino of Judicial Crisis Network says the nominee will clearly face intense scrutiny before even getting a vote to join the high court. Senate Democrats crossed a very dangerous line questioning the religious beliefs of the nominees. How can this be exposed?
Well, I think so. Judge Amy Coney Barrett's nomination hearing is what you're talking about. When we had Dianne Feinstein saying the dogma lives loudly within you, I'm not even sure. Whatever that means, it clearly means she seemed to not want someone who had deeply held beliefs. And that's something that's unconstitutional to have a religious test for office. But the good news is a lot of people, even on the left, said, whoa, wait a minute. That is a step too far.
Heritage Foundation's John Malcolm adds that anti-abortion groups hoping for a sudden change in the law might have to wait.
I don't see Roe versus Wade getting overturned anytime soon, but of course that doesn't fit with the Democratic talking points that the right to have an abortion is now imperiled by this next pick.
The primetime event is set for Monday, and President Trump can expect a huge audience awaiting to hear his choice. Ben Kennedy, CBN News, Washington.
CBN News chief political correspondent David Brody joins us now with more. David, what are you hearing on the latest in terms of these top contenders?
Well, Ephraim, a few things. First of all, the same names we heard about a week ago are still the same names, top 3 or 4 or so. So you've got Brett Kavanaugh, you got Amy Coney Barrett. That's a tongue twister, by the way. Say that 5 times fast. Along with Raymond Kethledge and Thomas Hardiman. Those seem to be the top 4, and that really has remained unchanged. Of course, Brett Kavanaugh coming under some of the toughest criticism right now within the conservative movement.
All right, so let's talk more about this in terms of what he is facing from the conservative movement. Share a little bit more.
Well, first of all, they believe, when I say they, we're talking about movement conservatives here, folks that aren't necessarily the establishment conservative wing of the party, but more movement conservatives. And they believe that he has found in opinions before, especially one specifically, a right for Obamacare, or that Obamacare is not unconstitutional. I think that's part of their concern. Now, remember, he's never said those words, Obamacare is constitutional, or has said it's not unconstitutional. But the bottom line is some of his opinions, especially one specifically at the D.C. Court of Appeals, Circuit Court of Appeals, has suggested that, and I think that's been a problem. So you've got Rand Paul and Ted Cruz and a few other senators calling up President Trump saying, let's put the brakes on Brett Kavanaugh.
Well, let's talk about Amy Coney Barrett, who's also come under criticism from liberals, though, for being very outspoken about her faith.
Right. So in evangelical world, as we've reported here before on CBN News, she would be the home run pick. However, for liberals, she's a major concern on the Roe v. Wade question, the abortion question, whether or not Roe v. Wade would be eventually overturned by the Supreme Court. She technically has never necessarily weighed into that officially, but she has given indications that obviously she sides on the pro-life side of things, if you will. And she's been very outspoken about her faith. And so obviously liberals are going to target the judge on that. However, it's not so much liberals as it is Susan Collins and Lisa Murkowski, the 2 pro-choice senators on the Republican side, because Donald Trump needs all 51 senators, or in at least 50 of them, to get the Supreme Court nominee confirmed. And I think that's the issue. How much will Murkowski and Collins be persuaded or dissuaded from Amy Coney Barrett? I said it.
Certainly be watching that. What about some of the others like Thomas Hardiman and Raymond Kethledge?
Well, first of all, on Thomas Hardiman, you know, he made the short list last time. As a matter of fact, we understand he was like second in line. It was Neil Gorsuch, and then Hardiman was right there. And Hardiman is, again, right there. Why? Blue-collar guy, first in his family to ever go to college. And Donald Trump had a great rapport with him. Of course, we know with Donald Trump, rapport is a very important thing. And of course, the optics are very important. So that could bode well for Thomas Hardiman. So I think that's part of it. And Raymond Kethledge, of course, has also, he's more a sleeper pick. He's on the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals, and so I think he's in the mix as well. But Thomas Hardiman, watch out for him as an actual sleeper, a real sleeper pick. He could be the guy here if Amy Coney Barrett is too toxic and Brett Kavanaugh gets kind of thrown out there or thrown out the window, if you will, by movement conservatives. I think it's anybody's guess right now. I don't think the president even knows, and if he does, he's not tipping his hand quite yet.
No, we'll be watching. David Brody, thank you. One of President Trump's most tenacious cabinet members has resigned amid ethics concerns. EPA Administrator Scott Pruitt aggressively carried out the president's agenda to the delight of many conservatives. But as Jennifer Wishon reports, growing questions about his behavior proved to be too much.
Facing an array of ethical questions, EPA Administrator Scott Pruitt is leaving the Trump administration, telling the president in a letter, "Unrelenting attacks on me personally, my family, are unprecedented and have taken a sizable toll on all of us." Pruitt drew ethics investigations for expensive travel, often flying first class, installing a $43,000 phone booth in his office, even using his influence to try and secure a Chick-fil-A franchise for his wife.
My wife is an entrepreneur herself. I love, she loves, we love. Chick-fil-A is a franchise of faith, and it's one of the best in the country.
President Trump praised him until the end, tweeting, "Within the agency, Scott has done an outstanding job, and I will always be thankful to him for this." In Pruitt's place, the president is appointing Deputy Administrator Andrew Wheeler, who is poised to pick up where Pruitt left off. He's a former coal industry lobbyist who fought government regulations. Before that, he worked on Capitol Hill, and like Pruitt, he's a target for liberals who see him as a champion of polluters and climate change deniers. Even without a blemish, Pruitt had a target on his back from the start because he threatened the liberal religion of environmentalism. In fact, he insisted he needed extra privacy on flights because he was confronted angrily in public, like this confrontation at a restaurant where a woman appears to read off notes.
"I would urge you to resign before your scandals push you out."
Despite his short tenure, Pruitt is leaving his mark. He was a major player in the president's decision to pull out of the Paris climate deal. He ended President Obama's Clean Power Plan and aggressively cut government red tape. In an interview with CBN News, Pruitt explained his motivation.
There's never been more of a threat to liberty, to what we know is the protections that are inherent in our Constitution than what we live today.
As an evangelical Christian, he approached his job from a biblical worldview, writing the president, "I believe you are serving as president today because of God's providence. I believe that same providence brought me into your service." Andrew Wheeler takes over the agency on Monday. Jennifer Wishon, CBN News, Washington.
Secretary of State Mike Pompeo has arrived in North Korea to continue talks about denuclearization. Pompeo is looking to nail down some specifics on the regime's commitments. Doubts over North Korea's intentions have grown amid reports it may actually be expanding its nuclear program. This is Pompeo's first trip there since President Donald Trump's summit with Kim Jong-un just last month. A former Thai Navy SEAL has died working to deliver supplies to the boys' soccer team trapped in a flooded cave in Thailand. The death of the experienced diver shows how challenging it may be for the 12 boys and their coach to get out. The group is currently receiving scuba diving lessons. Emergency teams are still trying to pump water from the flooded caves as more rain looms in the forecast.